After owning the DJI Action 6 for 2 months now, I have some thoughts on the camera. Let's get into that in this video now. Admittedly, when this camera arrived, I wasn't all that excited about using it after owning a DJI Action 3 that mostly just gathered dust in the corner of my room. Now, compared to using my DJI Action 3, I actually use this Action 6 much more, and I've been able to get a lot more use out of it, actually leaving my Nikon Z6 III at home most days in favor of this Action 6. Now, while my Nikon Z6 III is technically a much better camera, it's just not all that well suited for a lot of different scenarios, and one of which being in a festival like Sinulog Festival in Philippines, which I filmed a lot of content there for. I found that this was the perfect travel companion for that. When in an area where there's pickpocketers and camera snatchers, I found that I was a little bit too nervous to bring my Nikon Z6 III with my 14 to 30 lens or even my 26mm lens, because that is my main work camera. And if I lose that, I really am screwed. Maybe I'm being overly cautious, but there's just something about having something that's nice and light and you're able to pack around all day and not worry too much if it does get snatched from your hands. That really provides a pretty freeing experience, honestly. And the picture quality is now better than ever due to this macro lens that I'm using right now. Now, this camera is definitely not without issues, and I'm going to get into some of the issues that I experienced today throughout my reviews over the last couple months. I've done some of the most technical reviews on this camera on YouTube, going into the photo modes and every other mode besides that. So I think you're not going to want to miss my detailed insight as to what I think this camera is best suited for and who it's best suited for. I first bought this Action 6. I actually bought it to use on top of the hot shoe for my Nikon Z6 III. Not even really realizing I would be using it as my main cam all that much. But I think action cameras have sort of gone a long way over the last bit. One of the reasons why I bought this Action 6 was actually to shoot at f4. I know a lot of people aren't that excited about being able to shoot at f4, but it does bring some improvements like close focusing, even without the macro lens that I have on it now. It also brings increased surety, contrast, a little bit of sharpness, benefits by doing this as well. So it is a pretty useful addition to this camera, despite a lot of people claiming that it is not actually useful. Now, over top of that, you have the ability to go to f2 as well. And with that, that's when you really start to notice some sort of background separation with this camera, something that we didn't really get at all before in a camera that is in the action camera category. In my videos so far, I have reviewed this macro lens that I'm using right now. Basically, in any of my videos, if underwater or it's raining out, I switch over to the standard lens, but otherwise, I'm using this macro lens because I think it provides much better image quality. Inside that video, I was comparing this macro lens when shot between f2, which you're actually able to shoot at f2, whereas with the standard lens, you're only able to shoot within the variable aperture mode. And I noticed that the sharpness increases were actually quite substantial, even when shooting at f2. To be honest, I've been really trying to make bare rice appetizing. Not quite there yet. Need to spend more time meditating, I think. One additional mode they brought to this camera was the ability to use the 2x lossless crop, which, while I didn't really find that it worked all that well, was a good start to add some additional reach to this camera. But unfortunately, you cannot use it with the macro lens. And this macro lens, I feel, would have brought enough sharpness and clarity that it would have made sense actually using it. So now I have macro lens on currently, left the standard one at home. I have some beehives up here on the top of this temple that I want to zoom in on. But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to just crop that in post. I don't know if you can see it here. So that leads me on to the next topic, and that is talking about the new firmware update that they added to the Action 6. Now you have the ability to shoot in 8K, which is a great addition to the camera, but you cannot do so while using this macro lens. You're limited to stay in 4K. You don't have that 2x lossless crop. I still think that you lose a ton of detail by going into that, especially with the standard lens. But we really would, like myself anyways, I'm sure everyone else out there, we'd really like to see that 8K mode being added in while using this macro lens as well as a 2x lossless crop. I think one of the reasons why I really dislike the normal mode on this camera is that it actually adds a lot more of an over sharpened image and quite a bit more saturation than even the Osmo Pocket 3 added in. So I'm not sure why they sort of went this route. Obviously, they probably have done some tests and find that that sort of look is more appealing on social media, and that I'm probably not the user base that they're making that normal mode for. I've had some people comment on my videos saying that no one really uses the D-Log M workflow because it's more of a professional setting. But honestly, I don't find it to be all that much of a professional setting when they have a D-Log M LUT just within the app, or even you can download it as well for a desktop as well if you want to add it into something like DaVinci Resolve. It's literally a one-click solution in order to add that LUT. So I really don't think it's professional workflow by any means. It's just one extra press. So keep that in mind. It's not all that much work unless you're just dragging and dropping your files into your feed. It's one extra press, not that much of a problem. I'm sure most of you are editing and trimming these clips within the app or bringing it into something like DaVinci Resolve and using a LUT anyways. Now, obviously, me of all people, I cannot ignore the photo mode when talking about the DJI Action 6, seeing as I've been one of the only people to actually test and compare the different photo features on this camera, comparing it up against my Nikon Z6 III, even to an Ace Pro 2. Do I think the DJI Action 6 beats out a traditional mirrorless camera? No, not at all. But can it hold its own up against something like an Ace Pro 2? Yeah. I did find, however, though, that the Ace Pro 2 was a little bit better for photography itself. I still think it needs quite a bit more updates, even though they added the film looks, which is a nice positive start for people wanting to have a JPEG workflow. It would still be really nice for them to add in a linear sort of setting that corrects the image over and above the dewarp setting on this, because I found that the dewarp still leaves quite a bit of room to correct, whereas I would like to see much straighter verticals for shooting things like architecture and whatnot. So I don't know if you can tell, I'm no longer in the Philippines anymore. I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Surprise, surprise, looking at my elephant pants that I'm wearing. But I actually didn't have any time to make this video summarizing my experience within the Philippines because we left immediately the day after Sinulog. And actually, I've been finding it a little bit hard to record some of these talking head videos. I know I haven't been as consistent as before on this channel, and I'm hoping to change that. Just a little hard when I'm here with my girlfriend trying to do these talking head portions. I just have so much content that I've shot otherwise, but this sort of technical breakdown sort of video, it's not easy to do when you're exploring new places. Because I have so much content over the last while that I don't necessarily know how to add into this main channel's videos, I actually started to post again once more on my vlog channel. This is Devon Abroad. These videos are only scraping around 10 views or so per upload, so I would really appreciate if I could see you guys there. And these are the videos that I'm testing these cameras in more long form, or just sort of like more fun scenarios than on this channel, which is, in my eyes, a little bit more serious. Easily one of the best things about using these DJI Osmo Action cameras is that you actually have the ability to use these mics, and it's just one of the easiest integrations of Bluetooth technology that you're able to have so far when using a camera. I should mention as well at the same time, this is not really a unique feature being able to pair quite well with these mics, seeing as the Insta360 products also pair quite easily, which if you're wanting to see an X5 Insta360 review, I have one coming up soon, so look forward to that. One of the reasons why I bought this camera was to use it in that 1/1 inch sensor mode. I know there's a lot of people out there that were somewhat disappointed by this mode, hoping to get a true open gate, and it seems like it just added a little bit more height to the frame more than anything, which this can be really useful for some applications. But I find that when I drag those files into YouTube just like that, I find that the framing is just much too narrow for me, and I think it gives a bit of a weird look, so I've just been zooming into that video anyways, which is still good if you want to post on TikTok. So if you are wanting to repurpose that video into vertical video, that's definitely an option, but I don't really like the look of those files being loaded directly onto YouTube anymore, because I find the aspect ratio is just not really suited for my taste. When the Action 6 was first released, a lot of people were hoping that it would come with the 1-inch sensor like we saw on the Pocket 3. It seems as though DJI is making this mostly just a daytime camera. Yes, it has a night mode, but it's not really all that effective in my eyes. I would much rather use just the normal mode and try and control the ISO range as much as possible, rather than using that super night mode that's on this. Because I've found that the low light on this provides less than desirable results, I would almost always steer people towards a Pocket 3 if they're wanting to shoot a decent amount of low light video. One thing that's also really important to mention is that the Pocket 3, as of recent, especially in Canada, has received around a 20% price cut. This is because a lot of people have been speculating that the Pocket 4 is going to come out somewhat soon. So because of these sales, I really do think the Pocket 3 is a better move for most people. Now, looking at the Action 5 over the Action 6, a lot of people would probably be better off with the Action 5 unless you want to use something like this macro lens. The image quality difference really isn't all that much, and you're able to save just an incredible amount of money by going that route right now. Now, let's just get into a breakdown of what I think this camera really struggles with. First off, it has to be the low light on this. This is still an action camera, so I'm not faulting it all that much. This is designed to be used during the daytime, in my opinion. So I can't fault it all that much, but they do market these quite heavily based around the fact that it can be used at night. So you have to kind of deduct some points for that. To me, the second most annoying thing about this camera is that it lacks metering options. With Insta360, you have the ability to do matrix metering that meters the entire scene, or you have face priority. And on this Action camera, you really don't have an ability to choose between different metering modes. You're just stuck with the default setting. And I really am not a big fan of that. For me, I would have much rather, instead of the 8K, had some sort of additional metering modes added into this, because what they're doing right now is really heavily focused on center weighted metering, and you really notice this especially at nighttime. If you point up towards the sky, you'll have purple sort of flashes, and to me it just looks absolutely awful, especially when you crank the ISO. Now obviously I'm not too big of a fan of that normal mode as well, but they did add in those film looks, and I think they're actually half decent. Very rarely do companies ever add in decent film looks that actually work in a variety of situations. And I really like as well that they added in the ability to use those film looks at a percent level. Overall, I think the DJI Action 6 is the best action camera on the market right now. Without a doubt, I think it beats the Ace Pro 2. And this is only because I think the Ace Pro 2 is a bit older. Who knows, they could really shock everyone with their new Ace Pro 3 camera, but it's yet to be seen. Either way, I think for most people, even if you just have a cell phone that's been released in the last 4 to 5 years, I honestly think you're okay with that. So don't fall into the marketing tactics of a lot of these companies and feel like you need to buy something just because it's the latest and greatest from that company. Either way, probably better off just working on your craft and trying to create better storylines. Anyways, that is all for this video. I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye.
Kung di sa dance floor